So here is the next lab. Monitor the VxRail cluster and hosts with physical view. Okay. So I think we will do this lab. We'll just complete this one before starting the discussion around vSAN. So let's move on to the next lab, which is going to be lab number which do not contain any data generated by the VM. They either contain logs or details about the configuration of the VM. So we're going to take all these files together. We'll put them in like a bucket and we will call it the VM home, right? Because that's some sort of data that also needs protection, some sort of protection. We need to place it in our vSAN data store, right? So that's what the VM home is used. It's a piece of storage taken straight from the vSAN data store, which we're going to use to place the configuration files of the VM. That's the first object that you can see by looking at the list of objects of a VM, regardless of its status. Second one is the disk of the VM, or what's called also the VMDK of the VM. Okay? Well, by default, a VM will have a disk. That disk will contain the data, operating system and applications, or application. So if you give your VM 2 disks, you will have 2 VMDK objects. Okay? Well, the disk or the VMDK will simply contain the actual data generated by the VM. So if you give your VM 100 gigabytes, that will result into the creation of an object of 100 gigabytes. So these are the 2 objects. You can see, if you're looking at the list of objects of a VM, regardless of its status. Let me show you these 2 objects in the lab environment. Oh, I need to log into the lab environment. Give me just a second. Okay, so here is our lab environment. I need to log back in. Okay. So right click, new VM. So let's call it VM1. Okay, next. Cluster. So I'm going to use the vSAN data store. As you can see, there is a VM storage policy, the default one. Whenever you want to deploy a VM, you must select a policy. If you don't do that, the default one for your data store will be selected. And the default one is a red one with an FTT of 1. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more later. Okay, so let's give it maybe a 10 gigabyte disk. Not sure if it's going to work or not. Okay, 2 gig of memory. Next. Looking at the list of objects. Hello, can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, you dropped out.
Yeah, I think it was a network glitch. Okay, I'm wirelessly connected, so using the Wi-Fi. Okay. So here is our VM, right? The speed is not bad. Okay. So here is our VM, right? One way of looking at the list of its object is by simply selecting the VM and going to configure, for example, policies. Here are my two objects. Okay. The VM now is not powered on, so I can see the VM home and I can see the disk. Okay, so these are the two objects. For a VM which is up and running, excuse me, here are some of the objects, but the full list of objects can be seen from here. Go to physical displacement, and I can see the entire list of objects of this particular VM. And as you can see here, I have slightly more objects because the VxRail manager has more disks. And you can see here the third object that you can see in a VM, which is simply the swap object. The swap object is actually visible when the VM is up and running. It's that amount of storage, or that piece of storage taken straight from storage to swap out to it when the VM is experiencing some memory challenges. So you can use the swap as memory. Okay, so that's the swap. That's the third object. When you power off the VM, the swap will simply disappear. It's going to be destroyed. Okay. Next, we have two additional objects that are going to be visible if you take a snapshot. So if you take a snapshot, it's going to create delta disk. And if you include the memory as part of your snapshot, it's going to create memory object. So that concludes the list of 5 objects. So let's look at one of them and see how it works. By default, a policy is applied at the VM level. All the objects that belong to that VM will actually use the same policy. But you have the possibility to apply in a more granular way policies to specific objects. This is very useful, and that's the beauty of vSAN. If you have a VM running both the back end and front end of a single and unique application, where the front end, which is the application, requires maybe RAID 5, and the back end, which is a database that requires RAID 1, I can use 2 different disks, 2 different VMDKs. It's the same VM, but I'm going to use 2 different policies for each one of the 2 objects, right? So let's imagine this environment. I have a couple of hosts, 1 again, 2, 3, and 4. My VM is running here, okay? This is called VM1. And I have a disk, okay, in my VM1, which is my VMDK, and my VMDK is 100 gigabytes, okay? When defining a policy, there are a couple of things that you need to configure. We'll talk later in more details about how to create a policy and the wizard available for that. So one of the things that you're going to be asking about is what kind of RAID you would like to use. And you have 3 options to choose from. You have RAID 1, RAID 5, and RAID 6. RAID 5 and RAID 6 will require the advanced license as well as all-flash hardware. Without that, you can't use RAID 5 and RAID 6. RAID 1 is the option available by default. RAID 1 can provide an FTT of 1, 2, or 3, a failure to tolerate of 1, 2, or 3. RAID 5 offers only an FTT of 1, and RAID 6 offers only an FTT of 2. An FTT means simply like you are asking vSAN to tolerate a certain number of failures. And based on that, we're going to have extra copies of the data So we can tolerate failures. I'm going to give you a simple example of using a policy of RAID 1 with an FTT of 1. Okay, let's assume that for our VM, we are using RAID 1, okay, and an FTT of 1. So this is how the data will be distributed. We talked about reads and writes. Okay, we said that the data will hit the cache, then get destaged to the capacity. So what I'm explaining here, at the end of the day, we land at the cache, and from there it's going to be destaged to the capacity. The copies will go through the vSAN network. So for our object, this is the object. So this is our object. Okay, the data will be placed in each one of the disks in the form of something called a component. A component is simply an entire copy of the object. So if we are using RAID 1 with an FTT of 1, I'm going to place a component here, and for the purpose of RAID 1, we will add a witness here. Each component is an entire copy of the object. So this is 100 gigabyte, and this is 100 gigabyte. Okay? Each one of them is an entire copy. The witness is something really specific to RAID 1. What's the witness and what is it used for? So first of all, the witness will be created automatically. You don't need to worry too much about it. The system will create as much witnesses as needed, depending on the RAID 1 and the FTT selected. This is going to be visible only in RAID 1, not all the time. The witness contains metadata only, doesn't contain the data. So each witness in more recent software versions of vSAN, like starting from vSAN 7 update 3, each witness will consume something like 20 megabytes. Okay? It doesn't exceed 20 megabytes of storage usage. And it acts as a tiebreaker when there is a communication issue between, for example, the two hosts that contains the data, the actual copies. When there is a communication into the network, in order to avoid a split brain situation, we're going to use the witness. So for example, here we have, starting from the left to the right, host 1, 2, 3, and 4. If there is an interruption in the network communication between host 2 and 3, they don't talk to each other. Okay. In this case, the witness will form a cluster with one of the two hosts, typically here with host number 2, so we can continue to provide access to the data. The way vSAN works is very simple. In order to give you access or not to the objects, vSAN is a quorum system, and it uses a voting or uses votes for keeping access to the objects. If you have quorum, which means more than 50%, the object is said to be accessible. If you have less than 50%, the object is said to be inaccessible. We must not have exactly 50%. And that's the reason why we have a witness in RAID 1. You can imagine in our environment, if you don't have RAID 1, if we don't have, for example, the witness here, we would have a situation where we have 50% of the votes available. That's not good. We should either have, or we must either have more or less than 50%. What do I mean by that? When you place the data, each one of these components will have a vote. Okay? So the witness will have 1, the first component 1, and this one 1. That's something like 33% for each one of these votes. Okay? If you lose 1, For example, this one, due to the disk failure, host failure, network failure, whatsoever, we still have 66% of votes available. That's more than 50%. We have quorum. The object is said to be available. If we lose the witness, we have only 33% left. So this means we don't have quorum and the object will become inaccessible. Make sense? Any questions? Okay. All right. So I hope it's clear for everyone. Let's now look at data placement for each one of the existing. Let's just look at the VM I just created. So physical disk placement. Let's focus on the VMDK. As you can clearly see, we have components placed on host number 1, components placed on host number 2, and the witness is placed on host number 3. Similarly, for the VM home, we have a component, and the witness.